All right, so you're going to go ahead and grab your foldable. So your foldable looks like this. And we're going to go ahead and fold it. So the way that you're going to fold it is you're going to have this face up. And then you're going to fold into this middle line right here. Okay? Now when you fold into this middle line, when you fold this side right here, it's going to look like this. And then when you fold this into here, it's going to look like this. There we go. All right, it's going to look like this. Now, we're just going to do half of it today. We're going to just be looking at trigonometric ratios. And we're going to do the other half next class. All right, so this right here is activity 22. This is your last section before you take your test. So next class, we're going to be finished the other half of this activity, and then you're going to be taking a quiz over this section and reviewing, okay? All right, so trigonometric ratios, this is probably one of my favorite methods of finding missing sides in in a triangle. So this right here is another method of finding missing sides and angles for triangles. We've already looked at geometric mean, which was those questions, I don't know if you remember, the ones that had that square root and two numbers multiplied together. We looked at Pythagorean theorem, which is c squared equals to a squared plus b squared, and we also looked at 30, 60, 90 and 45, 45, 90 the last two classes. Okay, now this method right here works for every single question. So what I mean by that is we don't need altitude, we don't need it to be a special triangle 30, 60, 90 or anything like that. Okay, really trig is really useful because the things that are required of it is we need an angle and you need two sides. Okay, that's what's required for you to use trig. Now if you look at the front of your foldable, you're going to notice that one side has these negative ones on them and the other side has this. So we're just going to start on this side that does not have the negative one, so this side right here. And now these three are our trig ratios. So this one right here, this first one is not called sin, this is sine. And this right here, it's not a zero, it's actually a theta. So this theta is a variable and we use it to represent an angle, okay? So in the parentheses right here, you're going to put an angle. This right here is not called cos, it's called cosine. Cosine, and then this right here, theta, cosine of theta, or cosine of, and in here you would put whatever angle we're working with. This right here is not called tan, it's called tangent, and this right here again is your angle. So we're just going to go ahead and label that. Now, like I said, we are just working with this side, and this side right here is to find missing sides, okay? So if you ever have any missing sides, you can use sine, cosine, and tangent, okay? Now, just as a reminder, this thing right here, this theta, is just a variable for an angle. Okay, write that down. I do have a lot of people put theta and they think it's a zero and they put that in their calculator because that's what they think it is, but it's not. That's right there is an angle that you're going to fill in, okay? And we're going to write the names of these down. So this, like I said, is called sine. This right here is called cosine. And this right here is called tangent. Okay. All right. Now, we're going to go through these trig ratios really quick. Really, the foldable, I think it's good just to help you kind of get the setup of it. But you're going to see the other one is going to be a little bit more useful to you, like the other paper, because that one kind of has the steps on how to solve them. And it's a little bit more of what you're going to see when you get your quiz and your tests, okay? Now, go ahead and go into the inside of your foldable, and we're going to start with this top one right here. If for some reason your foldable is printed incorrectly, just look at this one, the one that has the 30 degrees on it and the square root of 3, the 2, and the 1. That's the one that you should be working on, okay? Now, when you're looking at these trig ratios, and what they are specifically is trig ratios is they just show a relationship in between two sides of a triangle. So what you're going to see is inside the parentheses of sine, cosine, and tangent is going to be the angle, and it's going to equal to a ratio, a division between two sides of the triangle. So we're going to have labels on our triangle. So you've noticed before that like pretty much for every section that we've been doing, one of the big parts is just going to be to label the pieces or label the sides or segments in your picture. Same thing here. We are going to have some labels. You're going to see that they're not new. One of them you haven't heard of in a while, so I will just go over it. So let's just start with sine. Okay, so we're going to start with this one right here. And let's start with sine. So sine, and in the parentheses, you're going to put your theta. Okay, for right now, I didn't put parentheses, but if we want to, we'll just put parentheses right there. So sine of theta equals to O divided by H. Now, O and H represent a side. So H should hopefully be easy for you to get. H is hypotenuse. Okay, and O might be the only one that we might not know. So we're going to write it right here at the top. You do not have to if you don't want to. I'm going to have you rewrite it in another page, so you can skip this if you want, but the O stands for opposite. Now, if I say hand your paper to the person opposite to you or look up at the person opposite to you, you should hopefully be looking at the person in front of you. So same thing here. Opposite means in front of, okay? And the H, again, stands for hypotenuse. So the way that these questions are going to work is, remember how I told you this theta right here means an angle? So really when you're doing these questions, the first thing you want to look at is my angle. So the angle that we're working with is this one right here. Okay? Now, this angle is going to help us find that O and going to help us find our third label, which is called A. Okay? Now, we're just going to go focus on the O and the H right now. If I was looking for the hypotenuse, we're just going to look for that right angle. And that right angle right in front of it, this side right here is the hypotenuse. And you're going to label that with an H. Okay? Now, if you want to label O, opposite, then you are just going to look at what is in front. Okay? Opposite means in front of. So you look at this angle and you look at the sides and you look at what angle is in front of it. Now, if you label this incorrectly from the start, you will get your questions incorrect. So make sure you're paying attention to the labeling right now, okay? If you look at the three sides, okay, you have this one, the hypotenuse. That one's already labeled. So the O is going to go either on this side right here or this side. Now, if I'm looking at each of these, you will look and see that this one right here is next to it, and this one, this side right here, is in front of it. The way that I like to mark it up to kind of show that it's in front is you would just go like this and just look what's in front of it. Oh, this side right here, that's where you're going to place your O. Okay? All right. Now, that's what sine is. Sine is the ratio in between those two sides. We're going to I'm going to show you how to do that with numbers in a second. But for right now, let's just go on to our next one. All right, our next one right here, this one right below it's the one that has, again, the 30, the square root of 3, the 2, the 1 in the middle. Okay, this one right here, it's cosine. So let me just... Okay, cosine. Now what cosine is, cosine of theta equals to A over H. So we have a new letter, this A right here. Now you have worked with this A before, or with this word that starts with an A, I'm sorry. But that H still is the hypotenuse, so that label right there is H. So like I said, the H doesn't really require you to even look at the angle. The A and the O do have something to do with this angle right here, okay? Now, if I was looking at O, remember O means opposite, in front of. So opposite is right here. Now, that A stands for adjacent, okay? That A stands for adjacent. So hopefully you know what adjacent is, but if you don't, adjacent means next to, okay? So if I'm looking at this angle right here, I need to find the side that is next to the angle. Now the two pieces that are next to this, angle, or the two sides that are next to it are this side and this side. But this side right here is the hypotenuse. So this is not the one I'm going to use. And instead we're just going to use that one over there. And that one is the one you're going to put that A on. Okay. Now with cosine, I know I labeled all three of them. You're just going to be using A divided by H. All right. Let's go to our last one. And again, we're going to come back and do number examples in a second. This last one right here is tangent. So tangent of theta equals to O divided by A. So remember, O means opposite, A means adjacent. So if I was doing this question, this right here is our angle. Remember, opposite means in front of. So right in front of that theta is this O right here. And A means adjacent, which is next to. So just like we talked about, just like we talked about in the last question, this right here is going to be our hypotenuse, right? So that means that this one right here would be our adjacent side, okay? So we would use this one and this one. You would not use H, okay? Same thing here. I didn't mention it, but I labeled all three sides, but you would not use the O. You would use the H and the A. Okay, now you're going to see for the next couple of examples, I just kind of want to show you how the setup is going to look for your questions. These next couple of examples are not very realistic to what you're going to get in your specific questions. But I did just kind of want to show you how to just do these setups before we get into actually solving. All right. Now, if I was looking at this picture first, the first thing you do is always identify what angle you're working with. Now, I know these are right triangles, so you're going to have right angles. You're never going to be using that 90 degrees, okay? So the angles are going to be the other ones on that picture. So if we're looking at this one, so for this one, I'm telling you that we're going to be using sine, okay? So I want you to build that ratio with the two sides that correspond with sine. So remember, the first thing that you do is always look for your angle. Your angle is going to be that 30 right there, okay? Now for sine, I need opposite and hypotenuse. So when we're labeling it, we're going to start with opposite. So opposite, remember, means in front of. So right in front of that 30 is the 1. And that's what's going to go at the top, 1. And at the bottom, I need my hypotenuse. Now my hypotenuse is going to be 2. So 2 is going to go at the bottom. That right there is how you write that trigonometric ratio. Now, remember what sine is. Sine is just saying what is the relationship in between those two sides. So sine just looks at the relationship in between the O and the H, the ratio in between those two, okay? All right, let's go to cosine. So make sure you have this copied down. All right, cosine. So for cosine, we're going to look at the same thing. So same thing for this one, it's cosine. And then theta, instead of theta, you're going to write the angle. So the angle for this one is 30 degrees. So that 30 goes there. For your fraction, the A goes at the top, the H goes at the bottom. So A means adjacent. So you would just look at the side that is right next to the 30 degrees. So I have two options, right? I have this one and this option right here. But from both of those options, one of them is the hypotenuse. So you're not going to use that 2. That square root of 3 right there would be my adjacent. So I'm going to put square root of 3 at the top. And at the bottom, you have your hypotenuse. So our hypotenuse is this side right here, which is that 2. So that 2 is going to go right there at the bottom. So cosine of 30 equals 2 square root of 3 over 2. Like I said, your questions are not going to look like this. I'm not going to give you all the numbers or anything like that. And if I do, it's because I'm asking you for another relationship. All right, last one, this one right here. So for this one right here, we already talked about what tangent was. Now let's look at how you would set it up for a question. So for this one, tangent of, and then in the parentheses is your angle. So my angle is 36.8 equals to, and then O goes at the top, A goes at the bottom. So if we're looking at O, that's opposite. So you look at your angle, and then from the three sides, you look at which one is in front of this angle. So if the angle's right here, right in front of it is this side right here, which is that side, and that side measures 3. So we're going to put the O right there, and that's what goes right there on the top, 3. Now at the bottom is adjacent. So adjacent can either be, remember adjacent means next to. So next to those angles are these two sides right here. One of them is going to be your hypotenuse. That 5 is your hypotenuse, so we're not going to use that one. We're going to be using the 4. So we put that 4 at the bottom right there. All right. Now, like I said, this is not how your questions are going to look like. This is more how your questions are going to look like, okay? Now, if you notice, we're going to have variables. There's going to be missing sides there. So the whole point of trig is to really just be able to use our those trig ratios or those sines, cosines, or whatever to figure out and solve for x. All right. So let me show you how you're going to do these questions. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to go ahead and identify your angle. Okay, that's what I was doing for the first step of most of this, as I was circling that angle. Now, after you circle your angle, after you circle your angle, you're going to go ahead and label your sides. I'm sorry, I'm writing a little bit on top of the picture, but label your sides. So remember, your labels for your sides are going to be the H, the O, and the A. Now the H, remember, stands for your hypotenuse. The O stands for opposite, and the A stands for adjacent. And I'm hoping you know what those two words mean, especially O and A. Like, most of the time people don't have a problem labeling their hypotenuse, but then they kind of lose it with opposite and adjacent. With opposite, make sure you know that that means that it's in front, okay? So what side is in front of the angle, okay? And then adjacent means next to. So what side is next to the angle? Okay, so when you're doing your identifying angles, you're just going to go to your picture and you're going to circle your angle. So hold up, let me fix this really quick. There we go. All right, you're just going to go ahead and circle your angle. Now, the next thing that I do is after I circle my angle, that's when I'm going to start labeling. So the first one that I always tend to do is my hypotenuse. So my hypotenuse, I look at that right angle, right across from it, that right there is my hypotenuse. Okay, and then I look at opposite and adjacent. So again, opposite and adjacent have to do with your angle. So you look at the angle and you ask yourself which side is in front of that 35. So from these three sides, the one that is in front is right here. Oh, and then A, adjacent, means next to. Which side is next to that 35? So right next to 35, I have two options. It can either be that side right here, AB, or this side right here, AC. Now this side, AC, is the hypotenuse already, so that leaves this side, and that is our adjacent side. Okay? Now, with these right here, like I said, they're not like the ones that were in your foldable where all of the sides were filled out and you could pick whichever one you wanted. You have to be able to pick a trig ratio. Now, this right here is a shorthand way for you to remember these. So, ka, to, this right here is just is a shorthand way of writing your trig ratios. So, if I was actually taking the time to write all of this out, which we did in our foldable already, this right here stands for sine of theta equals to O divided by H. This right here stands for cosine of theta equals to A divided by H. And this thing right here stands for tangent of theta equals to O divided by A. Now, I just memorized this, okay? Because I don't want to write all that, okay? So I would just make sure that you at least have this right here written down in your cheat sheet for your test, okay? Now, there is a lot of different ways to memorize this thing right here, or these rules, if you do not want to write them down. I have a lot of kids that memorize it before they get to their test because it's not that difficult. But a couple different ways that you can do it is you can do, like I just said, SOHCAHTOA. A lot of people remember it because it sounds like SOHCAHTOA. Yeah. And so they remember it that way. And then, so the so is SOH. Ka comes from the CAH, and then TOA. SOHCAHTOA. Okay. Other ways that I've heard it be memorized is some old hobo caught another hobo taking out acid. And here, I'm going to just put it on the screen really quick, something I found on the internet. Whoops, let me see if I can move it so you can actually see it. Some of her children are having trouble over algebra. Some outhouse can actually have totally odorless aromas. She offered her cat a heaping teaspoon of acid. Soaring over Haiti, courageous Amelia hit the ocean. And I would honestly just focus on these. After these, like, they just switch the orders. And there's more. So you can always Google some, different ways of memorizing this. Like I said, the way that I memorized it when I learned it the first time was with SOHCAHTOA, and I also learned it with some old hobo caught another hobo taking out acid. Okay, up to you, or you can just write it in your cheat sheet. All right, so the way that you're going to pick your trig ratio is, I'm just going to copy everything that I had written on this triangle down here, and I'm just going to show you really quick how you would do it, these types of questions. So you're going to put your labels. Once you have your labels, the one that you pick is going to depend on what information is given to you. So what I mean by that is, look at the sides and which ones are labeled. I have a 40, and you see the 40 is on the A, and I have an X, and the X is on the O. So I'm going to use the trig ratio that has A and O in it, okay? I do not want to pick the one that has the H on it. So if I want to pick the A and the O one, I'm going to pick tangent, okay? So like I said, we're not going to pick H because H has nothing on it. So that means that we are going to be picking this tangent right here, okay? Now, for step number 3, we're going to be setting up and solving. Now, I do just want you to split this one in half, and that third triangle right there, we're just going to change something about it. Go ahead and switch the X and the 40. We're going to be doing 2 questions in this box right here. So if you want, just go ahead and watch me really quick, and then I'll tell you when to pause to copy everything down, just so you have enough room for everything, okay? So let's go ahead and just finish this question off right here, okay? Now, this one we're going to call example 1. The third step for solving these questions is to set up and solve. So what I mean by set up and solve is, remember what I wrote right here, the sine of theta equals O divided by H, cosine is, that's the setup, okay? So for this, we already said that we were going to be using tangent, right? So we are going to be using tangent. So tangent, in the parentheses, you put your angle. So our angle for this one is 35. So tangent of 35 equals 2, and then O divided by A. So O goes at the top. So you just go and see what O is. O is X. So you put X at the top, divided by A. And your A is going to be 40. So you put 40 at the bottom. Oops. My 0 disappeared. 40 right there. All right. Now, the way that you're going to solve these questions is, this is just algebra. I know for some reason, well, not for some reason, this right here, we're just like, okay, what the heck does that mean? This actually gives you a number. This is actually calculable. So what I mean by that is, you can put tangent of 35 in your calculator. I'm going to show you how to do that in a second, okay? Now, the way that you would solve this right here, okay, is I want to get this X. So if this is confusing to you, can you just pretend for a second that this tangent is gone, and let's just pretend it's a 35. So if you had any other, algebra question and it was like this, let's just pretend the tangent was gone, then you would just solve for X. The way you would solve for X is, I want to get rid of that divided by 40. To get rid of divided by 40, we do its inverse operation, and the inverse operation of division is multiplication. So you multiply both sides by 40. I just realized 40. Keep dropping my zeros. All right. Now, when you divide both sides by, or multiply, I'm sorry, those both sides by 40, what ends up happening is this right here, that just cancels out. So we're left with x over here. And then we have 40 times tangent of 35. Like I said, this is a number. So you're going to put this right here in your calculator. So I circled it and I put in calculator there for you. So when you go back to your notes, you're kind of like, okay, that's how we got your answer. Let me show you how to put this in your calculator really quick. All right, so go ahead and open up Desmos. Pause. Open up Desmos. Now, first thing, and I'm in the scientific calculator because this is the one that you're going to get on your test. The first thing that I want you to check is you need to make sure that you are on the right mode. There are two different types of modes on your calculator: radian mode and degree mode. So first off, what I need you to do is make sure that your scientific calculator is on degree mode like this. So it should be in degree mode like this. The easiest way for you to check if your calculator is in degree mode is you can put tangent of 45 and it's going to give you an answer of 1. If it doesn't, then it's not in degree mode, okay? But this right here is in degree mode. All right. Now, the other way that you're going to check if your calculator is in degree mode is you're going to type what I have down on the screen and you're going to see if you get the same answer. If you do not get the same answer, I need you to check whether you put all the numbers in correctly. And if you did, make sure that it is in degree mode, not in radian mode. If you're wondering, well, what the heck is radian mode? Radians are something that we're going to look at later on in the year. But essentially, it's just another way of talking about an angles. So if I was asking you to measure something, like I was like, hey, how long is, I don't know, a Crayola marker? Some of you would come back with inches and some of you would come back with centimeters, right? Those are 2 units of measurement. So same thing here. You just don't know this unit of measurement here. Angles, we always work with in degrees so far, but you will be working with radians before the end of the year, okay? So that's the first thing I need you to do. Now the second thing is, how do I put it in my calculator? Now if you look at right here, you have them right here, sine, cosine, and tangent. Okay, so you can click those buttons or you can type it with your keyboard. It really is up to you, whatever you want to do. Okay, so the way that you would type it is just like you have it on your paper: 40 times tangent of 35. Okay, and our answer for this one is 28.008. You're gonna go ahead and round to the hundredths place. So this would round to 28.01. So let's go back to our question right here. And our answer for this one is 28.01. Okay? There's going to be 2 types of questions. If your number is in the denominator like this one is, these are easy. All you have to do is multiply it to the that number, and that's what you put in your calculator, and that's it. Okay? This is how you do your questions. There are going to be some that are a little bit harder, and the reason they're a little bit harder is just they have just a little bit more steps, but they're not that bad either. So look at this example right here. Notice I just switched the x and the 40. So I'm still going to be using tangent because I'm still using O and A. But now when I do my setup, it's going to look like this. Tangent of 35 equals 2. And then O is 40. So now the 40 is at the top and the A is at the bottom, so that x is at the bottom. Okay? Now, if you look at this one right here, remember how I told you to get rid of the denominator, you multiply? Same thing here. To get rid of the denominator, I'm going to multiply. So I am going to be getting rid of the x over here. Okay, I don't like that x is in the denominator, so I need to get it out of there. So to do that, multiply by x on both sides. When I do that, on this side, I'm left with 40, so you're just going to bring that 40 down. And on this side, you have x times tangent of 35. You should not be putting that in your calculator. It will not give you an answer, okay? So just bring down x tangent of 35 equals 240. Now, like I said, this right here is a number. So if this was any regular algebra question, if this was saying 35x equals to 40, then you would tell me, oh, well, I just need to divide to get rid of that 35 because there's multiplication happening here. Same thing here. There's multiplication happening, so to get rid of it, we're going to be doing division. So you divide by tangent of 35 on both sides. This is why I told you to wait, because I ran out of room. And when I do that, I get rid of that tangent of 35. You're just left with x. And this right here is what you would put in your calculator. 40 divided by tangent of 35. Okay? Now, if you're like, oh, I'm not really sure how that's even supposed to look like, let me just go ahead and tell you that the answer for this one is 57.13. And you're going to write it exactly like you see it. 40 divided by tangent of 35. I'm going to show you a screenshot of my calculator so you can see what it's supposed to look like. Okay? But go ahead and pause and copy this down. Make sure you have all of this down on your paper. All right. So in your calculator, the way that it would look like, this question right here, it'll look like this. 40 divided by tangent of 35. And we got that 57.1259. I rounded to 13. Okay, but this is what it should look like in your calculator. Again, make sure it's in degree mode. That's really one of the most important things. You can do everything right, but then if you go into your calculator and you accidentally have it in radian mode, it will give you the wrong answer. Just FYI, if you get a negative answer, it might be because you have it in radian mode. Okay, you will not get a negative answer for any of these because they're sides, so sides are not going to be negative. All right, let's go and do a couple of examples together, and then I'm going to have you do them by yourself. I'm going to have you pause as you're working to kind of get these and work on these on your own. All right, we're going to do number 2 together. So for this one, first things first, grab your angle. All right, our angle is 22 degrees. Next thing is that you're going to do your labels. So remember, our 3 labels are hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. So I always start with my hypotenuse first. And then to get opposite and adjacent, remember opposite means in front of. So of these, and we already got this one. So of these 2, which one is in front of the 22? This side right here is in front. Of those 2, which one is next to the 22? This one, this 55 is next to. So that's what we're going to do. This is opposite and this one's adjacent. Okay? Then you're going to pick your trig ratio. That's step number 2. Now to pick your trig ratio, you just look at where there's information. There's an X right there. There's a 55. Notice the H has nothing on it, okay? So I'm just going to write this up here just so you can have it as we're working right now. So when I'm picking mine, I need one that has the O and the A. So when I look for one with O and A, I see it's this one right here. So that's the one we're going to be using, tangent. So set it up. Tangent of, and then in the parentheses you put your angle, so 22. Equals to O divided by A. So O is X divided by A, which is 55. All right. This one has the 55 at the bottom. So to get rid of the denominator, you're going to multiply by the denominator on both sides. That gets rid of that. You're left with X equals to, and this right here is what you're going to put in your calculator. That right there is what you're putting in your calculator. Let me show you what it should look like. All right, in my calculator, it's going to look like this right here. 55 tangent of 22, and your answer is 22.22144,242. So round to the hundreds place, X is equal to 22.22. That's your answer for number 2. All right, go ahead and try number 3 on your own. All right, for this one, circle your angle. Label your side. So first side is hypotenuse. Then O and A. Remember, O means in front of. So in front of that 65 is this O right here. And right next to the 65, that's what adjacent is that 9. All right, to figure out which one you're going to use, just look at which one has information. This O has information right there. It has an X. The A has the 9. The H doesn't. So we're going to use the one with O and A, which is, again, tangent. So tangent of 65 equals to O goes at the top, so X goes at the top, divided by 9. To solve for this one, we're going to need to get rid of that divided by 9 by putting multiply by 9 on both sides. And that 9 times tangent of 65 should have been what you put in your calculator. So let me show you what that looks like. All right, when I put that in my calculator, 9 tangent of 65 is 19.300. So we're going to go ahead and, we're going to go and round. Actually, I don't need to round for this one. It would be x equals to 19.30. That's our answer. All right, go ahead and try number 4. All right, for this one, angle is 54 degrees. We're just going to go ahead and label. So this side right here, or this angle is our right angle. That gives us this hypotenuse. To figure out which ones are O and are A, remember O means in front of. So of these two sides, which one is in front of it? So 54 is right here. In front of it would be right here. And of these two sides, which one is next to 54? This one right here. So O is this one. A is this one. So to figure out which one we're going to use, look at which one has information on it. So this one has 30, so H. This one has X, which is A. So H and A. So H and A is cosine. So cosine of 54 equals to, and then A goes at the top. So X divided by H, which is 30. Now we're going to solve for this one. And I know this is the first time we're using cosine, but it's exactly the same. You're going to multiply by 30 on both sides. And that gives us, oops, and this is what you're going to put in your calculator, sorry. And here, let me show you what it should look like in your calculator. There we go. Your calculator should look like this, and that should be 17.633. And let's go ahead and write that. That's your answer for number 4. All right, go ahead and go to the next one. Try number 10. All right, number 10. Go ahead and circle your angle. Label your things. Hypotenuse, opposite, adjacent. The two sides that we're going to be looking at, or to pick our trig ratio, we're going to be looking at which ones have information. I have the 12 and the X, so we're going to pick the one that has O and H on it. So O and H is sine. So sine, in parentheses, you put your angle. So sine of 35 equals to O divided by H. So X divided by 12. We're going to solve for that X by getting rid of that divided by 12. So we're multiplying by 12 on both sides. And that gives us X equals 2. And you're going to put that in your calculator. 12 sine of 35 is what we put in our calculator. All right, in our calculator, it's going to look like this. There we go, 12 sine of 35, which is 6.8829. So that would be 6.88. That's our answer for X. All right, go ahead and try number 12. So not these two. We're going to go over those in a second. So don't do those right now. Go ahead and do this one right here, number 12. And just in case I have some people that are going to jump the gun, I am having you switch these right here. So just mark them out right now. I'm going to have you switch them in a second. All right, so for number 12, go ahead and try it. Angle. So this one is hypotenuse right there. This right here is your opposite side. And this one is adjacent right there. Okay, so for this one, we are going to be using the one with O and H, which is sine. So sine of 72 equals to O divided by H, so X divided by 4. To get that X by itself, we're going to multiply by 4, and that's what you put in your calculator. 4 sine of 72 is what you put in your calculator. You should get an answer for this one. Let me see, this is number 12. All right, 4 sine of 72, you should get an answer of 3.804. So go ahead and write that down. 3.80 would be our answer for number 12. All right, we're going to be doing 13 and 17 now. Like I said, for 17, I do just want you to switch those. So X would go there and the 70 goes over there. I'm going to do 13 with you. You're going to do 17 on your own. So let's do 13 together. So 13, I'm not going to spend too much time on labels. I'm hoping you got it by now. H is right here. Opposite means in front of. So in front would be that 100. A means adjacent, right next to. So right next to it is this side right here that has the X on it. Okay. So when we're picking our trig ratio, this is our ratio, SOHCAHTOA. So this one, the O and the A have information, so that's tangent. So tangent of 60 equals to O goes at the top, so 100 goes at the top, and then the A goes at the bottom, which is X. Again, to solve these questions, if the number's at the top and the letter or the variable, is at the bottom, this one requires a little bit of extra work, but it shouldn't hopefully be that bad. All you do is multiply by X on both sides. You're left with 100. X tangent of 60 goes right here. We want to get rid of tangent of 60, so we divide on both sides. And that 100 divided by tangent of 60 is what you put in your calculator. Okay, so let me just walk you through it again, just in case I lost you. To get rid of that divided by X, you're going to put and multiply it by X on both sides. That's what I did. Okay. When I did that, I had X tangent of 60 on one side and the 100 right there. Now, this tangent of 60 is a number. So if I have X times something, let me get rid of that times by dividing. And then I can put 100 divided by tangent of 60 in my calculator, which is what you should be doing for this question. So let me show you how it would look like in your calculator. 100 divided by tangent of 60 is what you would put in your calculator. And that's going to be 57.735. So let's round to 74. That's our answer. Pause and try number 17. All right, number 17, again, I'm sorry, I should have told you to switch them. Remember, we switched them, so X and 70. Okay. Now, circle your angle. This one would be H. This is O, this is A. So if I'm picking this one, we're going to pick the one with the A and H, because those are the two pieces of information. A and H is cosine, so cosine of 51 equals to A goes at the top, so 70 divided by X to solve for this one. Multiply by X on both sides. So 70 equals to X cosine of 51. I want to get X by itself, so let's get rid of this multiplication by dividing. And that 70 divided by cosine of 51 should be what you should be putting in your calculator. And that's going to be 111.23. And again, I'll show you what that should have looked like in your calculator right here. There you go. It should have looked like this. 70 divided by cosine of 51, 111.23. All right. Now, I have left extra examples for you on Canvas for you to look at. Make sure that you're looking and working through those. And we'll finish the other half next class.